it's George Nordhaus, and today, starting the new year, we have a very unusual, and my first time doing it because I haven't had anybody like Tom McCoy before, an interview with Tom McCoy. He's editor-in-chief of Rough Notes magazine. You've been reading his stuff for 44 years, believe it or not, and Tom's actually retiring. I mean, I just can't believe it. It's a big shock to my system, probably to Tom's too. Here's a picture of him. Tom, you've been around a long time. You've seen something. When did you come into business?
I started in May of 1969, probably a little after you, George, but at least it was in that same general era, I think.
I was running the Indiana Big I then.
That's right. I was in Indiana, where Rough Notes is myself. So it's good to have been associated with you and so many other outstanding marketers over the years.
Made an impression, I can tell you that. Well, so let's talk about 1969. How were things then?
Well, it's funny how the decades you look back and you remember little snippets of things, and certainly very different in terms of the most obvious being the lack of technology, and an awful lot of jobs were in existence so that people could push paper around, and it's something that we've come to kind of take for granted, that we don't spend the time that we did then in filling out applications and correcting things. And of course, in the journalism business, we were doing everything on typewriters, and just a whole lot of mechanical things that no longer have to be done. And I think we're all grateful for the changes in that respect. And I think another big change over the years that a lot of people maybe have even stopped thinking about is the opportunities for women, which were, believe it or not, pretty limited, and an awful lot of very competent, responsible women who just didn't have the authority and the recognition that we take for granted that they do today.
I hadn't thought about that, but you're so right. I used to go to the National Association of Insurance Women's meetings and speak and all that sort of thing, and I know they're still sort of in existence, but now it's just taken for granted. So that's a good thing, I think, for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so I think I noticed in the slide here you're putting up has to do with some of the challenges that agents have confronted over the decades, and a lot of things that they wrung their hands about and worried that their futures were in great jeopardy from some of the things that they were facing. And one of them was banks getting into the insurance business, and there was serious concern, and there's good reason to be concerned about coercive powers of banks and lending, and having the opportunity to write the insurance on people's personal and even business exposures, and at the same time having the coercion of a loan source. And an awful lot of energy went into combating that. And I think what's gradually happened is that it isn't considered the great threat that it was. Banks didn't turn out to be the greatest marketers of insurance, and sometimes they bought agencies, and sometimes they got out of it after they did.
Yeah, it's been an interesting. I've been watching that, very closely all those years. I remember when the Florida Association filed a lawsuit trying to stop them. Remember that with Tom Johnson and those guys back then?
Oh yeah, it was a very contentious issue, and I think what's happened, and it just proves the worth of the agency system, is that people who are good marketers of insurance will always have a major role in handling those exposures for people, and banks have an important role in the economy, obviously, but agents survive that, and some of the banks that have managed to do a decent job by purchasing agencies, and if they've left them alone, it can work, but again, I just think that the threat is something that agents overcome over a period of time.
That's a very good point. There's the other one too. The other one you were talking to me about, the Hartford thing. I remember that.
Sure, that was another example, and it wasn't exclusively this one situation, but it represents what happened when insurance company made a very significant partnership with the AARP, which is just a marketing juggernaut, and they went direct to their members. And of course, Hartford is a bedrock company of the agency system, and it was very upsetting to agents. And years later, the Hartford has now made the program accessible to agents, which is, kind of a recognition, because some of the AARP customers have wanted an agent, and that you now have the opportunity to do that. So again, I think agents ultimately prove their worth in that issue.
I do too. I mean, but this kind of illustrates too the thing: the progressives, the travelers, all those people who came out with the system of selling direct. And I think I think your point about people wanting an agent is a very, very good one. And so this kind of represents this, not just picking on the Hartford, but in general, the changes came, and agents were terrified, weren't they?
Yeah, and another example of service centers that personal lines companies and small commercial lines carriers established, and agents and still do consider that not necessary, and but it hasn't put agents out of business, and I think that it's just another example of where agencies that perform well, whether they work through company service centers or whether they do all the service work in-house, it's the quality of the personnel and the innovations that an agency creates that will ultimately win out.
You always talk about relationships too. That's really kind of what it's all about.
It is, and that's something that I don't think will ever change. And technology has certainly changed the way we relate to people. There's social media, and there's tremendous speed of contacting people, but there are agencies today that do things differently in terms of their how they reach people, but what it all boils down to is someone who is accessible and builds a relationship. That's what has ultimately always been the foremost determiner of an agent's success.
You always told me that agents, over the years, you were impressed with the number of various agents. And then you told me about, of course, I knew him very well. What's the story on this one right here?
Well, this is Chris MacVicar, who is president of the Flanders Group in near Rochester, New York, and Chris's agency won our Agency of the Year in 1997, and we talked to him and said, well, we generally invite the owner and to come to Indianapolis and have a presentation of the award, and he was flattered and everything, and he said, well, I'd like to bring everybody, and we began to think, well, how many is that? And so it turned out there were about 20. There in this picture, I believe there's 16. There were probably 4 that couldn't make it, but you can be sure that they were all invited to come. And Chris chartered a private plane and got them all on and dressed them in tuxedos, all alike, and we presented the award. And basically, what Chris, I think, made a tremendous statement in the whole matter was that everybody in his agency contributes very much to the firm's success, and I think this is just one example of how he runs it. And his agency is one of the highest revenue per employee firms that we've ever run into. So it's just an example of how I think people who value everyone in their organization is a real determiner of success.
Well, I think I totally agree. I know Chris, of course, worked with him many, many years and had him speak, and I still do. And I have to say that I admired the way he ran that agency and the way they went for niches, they went for specialties, but they were really, really authorities on it. You said it, highest income, he had like $300,000 a person income, and it was just huge. And he's just been one of the best managers I've ever known. That's really a good example of what agents can do And who in the heck would have ever thought to bring all your people on a private plane? Holy mackerel!
Yeah, that was his expense.
There's another one that you always
we were gonna pay for the owner, and then he paid for getting them there. So another example is last year's winner of our Agency of the Year award was Gilles, Ellison Baker in New Orleans, and what impressed the people that voted for them for our award was that they not only survived Hurricane Katrina, but they've grown 15% annually every year since, and they all organic growth, no acquisitions, and these people had to abandon the town the way so many people did, and they set up shop in a trailer for a couple of months in Baton Rouge. And so they moved from a high-rise across from the Superdome with I don't know how many thousand square feet to a trailer. And within 3 weeks, they were completely fully staffed. A lot of the people had to evacuate to all parts of the country, but within 3 weeks, they were all back. Now, within 2 or 3 days, there were people that were making the agency operate, but they did a lot of it by text messaging. It was because you couldn't get regular phone service into their customers in New Orleans, and so it's again, it's just an example of agent perseverance. And I think one of the principals said that when they were in the trailer, he said an agency without any walls works. Not much was certain, but we had each other, and that was enough. And
that's really nice.
No rank, no organization, one for all for one. An office with no walls, no privacy, no rules, works just fine.
Great story. Well, you've been working with these people. There's Rough Notes homepage. Thank you for putting me on that Rough Notes. I like that. It makes my head swells every time I go in there. I have to tell you, that's where we archive the Monday mornings. But a lot of things. The agent has a future, I think, don't you?
Well,
I hope.
Absolutely, and one of the things that's encouraging, and we need to start thinking about, all of us baby boomers are getting close to not being as much a part of the workforce anymore. And when you look at the millennials, which is a generation that's roughly 18 to 31 at this point, by the year 2020, millennials will represent 50% of the workforce. And so not only as customers, but as employees, I think agencies have a new force to deal with, and I think the new needs and new perspectives, and it's exciting. I think there's an awful lot of great potential in the way that this generation is going to contribute. They do have a different perspective from, for instance, a lot of this generation is coming into the workforce with a lot more debt because of the high costs of secondary education at this point. They obviously are very savvy in social media, and there's some different needs and some different perspectives, but they're all opportunities, I think, for agents to take advantage of their perspective.
Well, I think, as usual, Rough Notes will be leading the way. It has for all these years, and it's just a phenomenal story. You guys get great writers. I don't know where you get them all, but they're terrific.
Well, we are proud of the people that produce for us, and I think that's what makes our publication, if I can brag a little bit, distinguished, is that I think there's so much that everyone has to read, and you can't keep up with everything, and so you try to filter and select and find articles that agents can use, and our cover story and our individual subject stories, we try to do that, and but you're right, George. It is the writers that pull it off, and we're very fortunate to have some excellent ones.
Well, it had something to do with the editor-in-chief. I'm not going to say who that might have been to get these good people, but you do. And and you retain that well. And then, of course, our friend, huh?
Absolutely, and I tell people 44 years is not really all in the same organization. When Walt Godasky bought our company about 25 years ago, he made some tremendous improvements, some tremendous investments, which have made us really leaders in our field, and it's all due to him. As your listeners who are entrepreneurs themselves know, it's the people that take the risks and make those tough calls that are responsible for all of our welfare, and so we're fortunate that he's been the leader here.
He's been great and totally approachable and totally cooperative, and you could say all you want about Walt, but he's a good friend of mine, I'm proud to say, and he's meant so much to me over these years, but I can just imagine what he's meant to all the independent agents, and not too bad, old Tom McCoy there. Well, Tom, thank you. I mean, this is 44 years. What can I say? It's just been an amazing run. I don't know in my career, which is a little bit longer than that, I have not known anybody who has been with a magazine or with any kind of trade press in our industry for that long. And I'm not looking for them, but you've gone with the times, and I think that was very important over these years. You were able to cope as these changes that you just talked about did come along.
Well,
so let me thank you for all those years, and I want to thank Rough Notes Magazine. Has been in business, are you ready for this? 135 years. Motivation, leadership, been wonderful over those years.
Yeah, we're just getting started, George.
And that's probably what you think. Well, listen, good luck in your retirement.
Thank you, George.
I know I'll be seeing you, hearing you from you, or somewhere along the way. And again, from all of us in the industry, thank you. And don't forget to go back to those of you who are reading, getting your Monday morning from your email. Go back to the email, and you'll see the archives there from Rough Notes. You'll see the quiz flash of the week and the Arizona mission tip of the week. But go on in and look at them, and you'll see them. And, of course, we'll see you in Rough Notes Magazine. Tom, one more time, thanks again.
Thank you, George.